when I'm not speaking, or?
Yes. Don't worry about it.
Oh,
Hi everybody. That was interesting. Okay, so welcome to Nerdrevolt number 51, the UN versus Japan. And that's not the only story we're talking about. We also have some other stuff planned for you. That was just the name of the title that I chose because I like the idea of that title. So I am your host, Brian Martinez, and I am joined by Max. Hi, Max.
はじめまして。よろしくお願いします。
Oh, nice. I'm impressed.
That
Hannah.
was
Hello. How are
Man,
you?
Hannah does with the hello.
Yeah, I don't have anything fancy to say just yet.
Okay, Max, you were saying something? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that goes out to Anime Moon or Anime Mun in the chat.
Oh, right. Weebs. Take heed, weebs. And Scott?
You know what? I only speak American, so I don't know what the fuck Max is saying. That's some crazy shit, though.
Think some Americanese.
Some good old-fashioned Americanese, exactly.
And Allison is here. I don't know if she's just sort of lurking.
Maybe.
Okay, she might be. I don't. We'll wait and see if she has any words to say. But
You can hear me?
yes, we can hear you.
Well,
Yes.
oops. I guess I ceased to lurk.
Yes, you took the bait.
Unless you come out and say that you can neither confirm nor deny that you are actually here.
I can neither confirm nor deny my presence on this podcast. That is all.
All right, and then we have our special guest, Kevin. Hello, Kevin.
hi. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good.
All right. Thanks for joining us. So we have a few things that we're going to talk about, but first, since Kevin is our guest, he's here for a special reason. He's not just here because of his good looks. We want to talk a bit about the happenings at Ryerson University, and I thought that this would we would take this time. This is related because it deals with things like censorship and male spaces. I don't even like to use the word male spaces, but you know what I mean. Spaces that are typically dominated by men. Kevin, would you tell us a little bit about your story, what happened with you?
Sure. So I guess this story begins in October. I had, I guess, expressed an interest in starting a men's issues group at Ryerson, and it really just started off with a Reddit post. I started, making accounts on social media. I started a Facebook group, a Twitter page, and really just wanted to get the word out about the group.
When you say it's a men's issues group, were you actually like looking to make sort of like an MRA sort of space or a place where men can like talk about their problems, or was it more like a club kind of thing? Like, what I'm just curious about what your like initial goals were when you were setting the group up.
Yeah. So really, the reason that I called it a men's issues group and not a men's rights group was because to me it seems like men's rights sort of just covers a fraction of the issues facing men and boys, and really men's rights to me deals with I guess the law and stuff like that, whereas men's issues covers a broader spectrum, so it kind of deals with issues around masculinity, why boys are failing in school. Those aren't really, to me at least, not really men's rights issues. They're kind of just men's issues. But men's rights are certainly a part of men's issues, so they are a part of what we want to do as a group. Really, I just wanted to sort of raise awareness about these issues, raise awareness about the high rates of suicide amongst men and boys, as well as the homeless problem, and a host of other issues. I'm sure you're all aware of them, and really just start discussions about these issues. So far, we've had two sort of big events. The first one kind of dealt with mental health and childhood trauma, and the second one was about just gender identity and LGBTQ issues. And our next event is going to deal with issues surrounding race and masculinity. So it was really just about raising awareness, because I think before we get to any point in society where we can start changing laws and start um, doing things like that, I think people just need to be aware that men's issues and men's rights are even a thing to begin with. And so that's what our group was dedicated towards, to just raising these issues and getting people talking about it.
All right, thanks. Max is I'm gonna give the floor to him because he's also a Toronto native.
Yeah, unfortunately. Hey, Kev, what's happening? I go to Ryerson along with you, although I don't believe we've ever met. I do have a couple of questions, as you might see in the sort of the group chat that we have right here, but I sort of wanted to ask a quick question before we get into the meat of that. Because you said you started off with something like a Reddit post. I was just wondering if we could just go back before that a little bit, and I was just curious as to whether there was sort of like an instigating moment, or as people like us here at Honey Badger Radio might like to call a red pill moment, that sort of turned you on or just spurred you forward towards just trying to advocate for men's issues.
Yeah, I mean, it really did all start with Reddit. Even before I made the post, I was just sort of browsing, I guess, the front page, and I came across the Karen Strawn video, where the one that she did about male disposability.
Right.
And that kind of opened my eyes a lot to things that I had never really considered. I sort of laughed off the idea of men's rights or men's issues right off the bat. But then as soon as I started, as soon as I watched the video, that kind of piqued my interest, and I started looking more into it. I'd always been interested in gender issues as well as human rights issues. So once I started, getting more into it and reading more about it, that's when I decided that this was a topic that isn't really addressed enough, and so I just decided that I wanted to do something about it. I knew about the previous Ryerson group that got rejected, and that kind of really made me angry. And I think that was also a big part of the reason why I wanted to make a group at Ryerson specifically.
Okay, and could you just elaborate to people exactly what happened to the previous group, and who sort of prevented you from getting certification? Because that's one of the main things that, if you want to be a club on Ryerson campus, it's ideal to sort of go to the RSU to try and get certification. That way you can get funding, that way you can get certain spaces. Just sort of want to talk about what happened there?
Yeah, so the previous group, I'm not exactly sure why exactly they were rejected. I did speak to one of the old executives of that group, and he said that they pretty much told them that men's issues and men's rights were not a thing, that the student union didn't believe in that, so that they weren't gonna approve them. So with this new student union, because the old student union got replaced by this new one, I really thought that they would be different. I remember going to them and speaking to them last year while they were campaigning about, how they felt about social issues, because the previous student union did a lot of controversial things. I remember they banned all Israeli products, which divided the community, as well as a bunch of other things that really divided the community. So when I went to speak with them last year, they told me that they weren't going to be doing anything like that. So I really had high hopes for this student union in their commitment to, I guess, remain impartial. But I quickly found out that really I was just seeing sort of the same ideas and the same type of commitment to shut down any type of male voices from having voice at the university. So Yeah, and I realized that very, very early on.
Right, and you said something about them saying that men's rights or men's issues aren't a real thing. Was I'm just curious as to how they responded when you asked them to sort of clarify why they didn't give the previous group certification or give you certification. I was just wondering if they sort of provided any statement or something like that.
Well, I'm not sure because, like I said, that was like the previous administration.
Right.
This administration did give us reasons. The reasons that this administration gave us were that they feared that our connection to CAFE, which is the Canadian Association for Equality, which is a registered charity, and they had to go through a very rigorous process to get approval from the federal government, that just our mere association with them, as well as, you know, our, I guess, I don't know what, the types of things that we were going to be talking about, they feared that we would be bringing violence against women and misogyny on campus, and it was really loose reasonings for it.
If I may interject here.
Yeah.
If I may interject, what's amazing about this is the Center for Equality, CAFE, Canadian Association for Equality. They don't call themselves any sorts of men's rights group, and they also disavow any association with any kind of men's rights group. They are purely a group talking about the issues of gender equality that they feel are marginalized currently. That's it.
Yep.
And anybody who is associated with them, they are ostracizing and marginalizing anyone who's associated with that group. And people say, oh, well, if someone associates with men's rights groups, you know, we can't associate with you because you're too extreme, and people will stop associating with us. Well, it doesn't matter how mild you make your message. If you deviate 1 nanometer from what they want, what these individuals want in these advisory or in these colleges, they will not. I mean, it's ridiculous to say that that CAFE is in any way radical or militant or extreme, and yet how could they are arguing that any kind of association with CAFE is tainting? It's like arguing association with the Jolly Green Giant or the Mr. Rogers is freaking. That CAFE is so mild, so mild. And it just has a mild interest, a non-militant interest in these issues, and association with them is tainted. It taints you. It is not men's rights. It isn't the word men's rights. It isn't the word. Now it's the word men's issues, of course. And we could say men's slight concerns, or perhaps men's insignificant niggles, or men's minor thoughts and shower thoughts. And that would be, oh my God, you're associated with men's minor shower thoughts? You're horrible. Like it doesn't end. And to the people who say, you know, why don't you be less extreme in your rhetoric? Well, there's no way to be less extreme. There is no way to position yourself in this climate to make people not do that. These people not do that. Like I said, we could call ourselves the men's niggling shower thoughts, men's SN, MSN, MSM.
Well, I mean,
and they would still complain about it.
When you're dealing with a group of people who thinks the mere statement that men are human and human rights issues include men, when they think that's extreme, then what are you going to do? But, you know, we're all supposed to believe that feminism is not about hating men. It's offensive to say that men are human. It's offensive to say that human rights that apply to human beings include applying to men. But feminism is not about hating men, right?
But
or whatever these patriarchy, you know. But anyway, sorry, I hijacked your question session, Max. So I shall step off.
It's okay. That was worth bringing up. It really just hammers home the fact that when you ask them to sort of point out what it is that is so radical about the speech that people before Kevin here have said, or what he has said himself. They fail to do that. They just purely go off of the it's sort of cheesy to say, but don't judge a book by its cover, but that's exactly what they're doing. Now, Kevin, you sort of alluded to this before about sort of controversies regarding the RSU outside of the men's group with the Israeli, what was it that you said?
Yeah, well, this was the previous administration that banned Israeli products from the school, I guess, and yeah. So I guess my point by bringing that up was just that the previous administration had shown that they were very politicized and that they were constantly dividing the community. This new administration had said that they would not do things like that, that they would sort of stay out of these types of social issues and not try to divide the community. And really, they've just done the opposite. For example, the vice president of equity, I've spoken to her now many times, and she's just awful. I'm not even gonna lie about that. She just the worst type of social justice warrior you could meet is this person, and
Right.
And that's who is currently running the university. And it's not just the RSU. It's also other campus groups who came out immediately against us before even finding out who we were or talking to us or anything like that. Right off the bat, they started our campaign to get us banned from the university, and they've launched an effort to paint me as a monster. I actually remember there was this one event. Now, look, before I continue this, our group has always said that we would be open to anybody, whether they're feminists, non-feminists. Anybody's welcome to join, and there's actually feminists in our group who come out to meetings, and they support men's issues. So this is not me attacking all feminists, but there are certain feminist institutions like the Feminist Collective, like these groups that have come out against us and have made our lives more difficult. So, for example, the Feminist Collective, they had an event called Reclaiming Safe Spaces on Campus or something like that, in which they pretty much just had a bunch of speakers come out and talk about issues of racism, sexism, stuff that they've dealt with. So I remember I was coming out of, actually it was the appeal hearing for my group, and I was leaving the appeal, and I saw that they were having this event, and it was completely on this. It was on the street. It was completely open to the public. Anybody could just stop by and listen to this speech. So that's exactly what I did. I was walking by, and I stopped for a bit, and I listened to this Indigenous woman talk about her experiences with racism. And I was respectful. I just stayed in the crowd. I didn't say anything. And when she was done, I clapped, and then I had to leave because I had to write an essay that day that I was due the next day. And two members from the Feminist Collective, the two executives, saw me, and they recognized me because obviously, they would. They've been the ones who've been launching this campaign against me. They went to the press and told them that that my mere presence, not even the fact that I did anything, just my mere presence there was making the space unsafe. Not only that, the vice president of equity from the RSU said that she was glad I left because I had apparently realized that my presence was dangerous or something. So they completely painted me as like this type of monster just for coming to this event. When really what I was doing was trying to sort of extend an olive branch and show solidarity on issues that we can agree on. And it's just really unfortunate that they use this as a way to just pretty much crap on our whole group
When
and
you
make
say
us look like
press, does she go to like actual media press or campus press?
campus press.
Okay, I was curious about that because that would be quite an interesting thing for somebody to publish in a mainstream, like a local media press. Campus press is bad enough, though. I mean, like, what was she afraid of? You were going to explode or something? Those exploding, notorious men's issues advocates, they have to watch out anytime they might go off. But she actually made that specific statement, named you, and said that your presence made the space unsafe.
Yes, and that I was dangerous.
And didn't give any reason why you were dangerous.
Just for being the way that they worded it, just because I remember one of them said something ridiculous like, him as a person didn't make me feel unsafe, but him in his position as the Men's Issues Awareness president did make me feel unsafe, whatever that means.
Did they publish it?
The newspaper did publish that. And it's funny because if you go to the very bottom of the article, they include one quote from me because they did call me that day to ask me about it. And pretty much it's, the whole article is just them completely bad-mouthing me. And then at the bottom, it's just my quote saying, oh, I really, support what they did here today or something like that. And I hope that one day groups like mine also have a space on campus to talk about issues relating to men and boys. And that was it.
And they didn't put any caveat in the paper saying that the views expressed by other people about you were not the views of the paper or anything like that?
No. I mean, it was like the newspaper itself didn't say anything bad about me, but they did include all the quotes of them bad-mouthing me. So
that's bizarre. Usually, that's a publication sticking its neck out right there, because you can't publish things like that about a private citizen without the risk that if there are ever damages, such as the citizen now having difficulty finding a job or getting into another university to continue education beyond the bachelor level or things like that, that individual won't file a civil case against the publication for libel. If they didn't have anything that they could say that was true, they couldn't come out and say this guy did X and X is bad because Y. They didn't come out with anything. That's quite a comfort zone for them to have there, that they feel comfortable going that far, sticking their necks out that far.
Yep.
That's quite an environment on your campus.
You should. My suggestion to you is you save that, and in the event that you experience, in fact, document any potential harms done to yourself, to your reputation, and in the event that you do experience substantial harms, get back to us, and we will make sure that you have the money to pursue a lawsuit.
Well, thank you. So far, I've been pretty lucky. Nobody's really come out and really harassed me too much online or anything like that. But I do kind of maintain some level of anonymity. For example, my Facebook is not my real, not my first and last name. So I've been lucky to kind of avoid any sort of direct backlash. But people have talked bad about us, I guess.
Well, you had to. I assume you had to have signed forms with your real name to create this club, right?
Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah. So it's an unfortunate situation. I remember when I first started the group, I had told various school newspapers that I was intending to work with these other groups, even the feminist collective. I would have loved to work with them on issues that we both can agree on, or even just have each other come out to each other's events. and stuff like that. I really wanted to bridge to bridge that gap between like feminists and MRAs and anybody else who doesn't associate as either. Um, and what I found is I ended up having to take a side and get caught in a crossfire, I guess.
Can I sort of just hammer home one more thing about this whole, how bad the campus treats issues of free speech? Kevin, are you aware of something called the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms?
Yes.
Yeah, and you're aware of how they've ranked Ryerson in regards to how they try to uphold free speech, right?
I haven't heard about the rankings, but I have actually been speaking to them.
Right.
About
Yeah, see, the thing is, for the past couple of years, if I'm not mistaken, they've been giving Ryerson a failing grade, like an F, because of how they've been handling these issues, and they squarely place all the blame on the Ryerson Students' Union. And it's not just for what's been going on with the men's issues groups or the Israeli stuff, but also I did a video on this almost a year ago, just about some of the stuff that's been going on at Ryerson. They decertified a group that tried to start up a pro-life club just to sort of discuss those issues. And the sort of the retort that they had was that, oh, it's just a bunch of white conservative race prejudice people that hate women or something, but in fact it was ran by 2 women and a black man. And on top of that, I believe Sargon also did a video on this. Sargon of Akkad, he's a popular member within sort of our spheres. He did a video on another event where I think you probably have heard of this. It was when 2 students from the journalism program went into sort of a meeting held by the Racialized Students Collective. Did you hear about this?
I think so, where they banned all white people from attending or something like that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And their reasoning for that is they believe that if white people are a part of these types of discussions on race, it oppresses what can be said and stuff like that. That's how bad it is. And I encourage people to just look up some of this stuff because it's absolutely amazing that people are able to get away with this sort of thing. And then I applaud you for being able to keep such a level head by, distinguishing between the fact that, there are feminists that are for free speech and then there are the people that we as students of Ryerson have to deal with every day. So kudos to you for that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and they've tried doing stuff like that to us as well. They've called us every name under the book. They've called us misogynists, racists, transphobic, pretty much everything. It's a shame.
It's you guys, seriously, it's sometimes when you sort of I'm sort of speaking to the people that are watching this stream right now. If you ever believed that there were actually people that represent this stereotype of what a social justice warrior is, you have to, and Kevin, I'm just sort of saying this on your behalf because I don't want to get you in trouble for any potential reason, but they are literally the most apt representation of what a social justice warrior is. They're not very kind people. And when you see the sort of stuff that's happening, you start to understand what I'm saying, and I'm hoping that we can sort of get the word out about what's been happening on Ryerson so that we can get sort of more attention to it and sort of actually get stuff changed so that we can actually use Ryerson and sort of make use of what it's supposed to be. It's a university. You go there to discuss differing ideas, dissenting ideas, and that's not what they're having. They're trying to maintain the groupthink.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially at Ryerson, that goes deep into the institution. It's in every classroom that you take. It's always framed under a Marxist feminist theory, even in topics that have nothing to do with it. And that's just how it is at Ryerson. And no wonder that so many students come out thinking the way they do and have such radical ideas, because even the professors are radical themselves.
Yeah, like I've actually taken classes where one of the professors actually had some of Anita Sarkeesian's videos as a part of the lesson. You know, yeah, you know who she is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty bad. And there are people, a lot of women especially, because the majority of my friends happen to be women. They wanted to speak up about this, but they knew that if they did, the same thing would happen to them that happened to you.
Yeah.
And that's the environment that we have to live with. It sucks.
Yeah. Even my executive, my executive of social media, she's also suffered from this because she's a journalist student. So, you know, at least according to her, within the journalist program, they have to often work together and work on assignments. And she's been sort of ostracized from the community in many ways. She's heard people talking about her, saying that she's a meninist, and yeah, it's. I mean, we've luckily in my program, it's sort of very individual based, so I don't really interact with my classmates in the same way as I would in a journalist program. But yeah, it's,
Well, journalist programs are also, I think, more heavily inundated with social justice types. I don't know if it's as bad in Canada or worse in Canada, but in the United States, it's been that way for decades. And it was that way when I was in high school in the 80s. It's very much been a dedicated thing. Social justice types going into that profession specifically to affect communications and the availability of information and to sort of use it as a platform to promote their specific ideas, not so much for the practice of actual journalism. So she may find herself in an environment that's particularly hostile just because of that as well.
yeah, and you know, she's told me about it. You know, I feel like all the people, at least in the executive, have gone through uh, at least some form of anxiety or you know uh, just general pressure. Um, you know, just being in what we're being in doing what we're doing and being who we are.
And it's a hard thing to add on top of a course of study and all of the homework and the studying and the events and everything that go along with it.
Yeah.
But documentation of these things can be very important. Sometimes you'll have recourse for behaviors. You don't always have recourse for things that people do. Like you got people talking about you behind your back. You don't really have recourse for that. But if people are actually interfering with your learning environment, and it's active interference with your learning environment, sometimes, depending on what type of interference, there is recourse. But the best way to protect yourself and your ability to access that recourse is to document when these behaviors take place as much as you possibly can. Even if you're just keeping a journal, or create a social networking account that isn't connected to anything and does nothing but document these kind of things.
hmm Yeah. I mean, I guess yeah. There are lots of ways to deal with it, I guess.
So what was I going to say? Yeah, so the person that you were talking about, did you say what her name was?
Which one?
The one that was called a meninist.
Oh, yeah. Her name's Alex.
Alexandra, yeah. I know who she is. Guys, everybody that's watching right now, what I encourage you to do is look up a YouTube user on YouTube right now called Alexandra Blue. She's a part of this Men's Issues Awareness Society as well, and her story is actually quite interesting. If you watch some of her videos, she details how she went from sort of being a self-declared feminist to sort of being a part of this society and all the struggles that she's had to go through. So go support her and talk to her if you find what we're talking about interesting, and or talk to Kevin, just so we can try and make sure that anybody who wants to sort of discuss whatever they want on campus, that can become a reality for them. So anyways, we sort of went through, like, we posted a list of the questions in the sidebar here, and we sort of pretty much touched on all of them, but I was just going to ask, just to sort of cap things off, what are, like, sort of current things that are going on with the Men's Issues Awareness Society? Like, what are some upcoming events, and what are your hopes for the future?
Yeah, so right now we're just sort of trying to reorganize. We are going to have a couple of, open events for our members to come out and sort of talk about the future of the group and what they would like to see happen. We do want to tackle a couple more issues, particularly race and culture and how that affects, masculinity. We also want to do a talk about men in the justice system. So I actually do have a speaker who's going to come out to that event. That might happen around April, maybe. And yeah, we're just going to have discussions like we've been doing. As for what we plan to do with the university, this Thursday, I have a meeting with what is it, the Human Rights Office at the university, per the suggestion of the ombudsperson at the university, because I've been trying to do everything I can through the university to get our group approved. I don't think there's much we can do. The groups are all sort of officiated by the Ryerson Student Union, so they pretty much get a final say on who gets to be a group and who doesn't. But I want to exhaust all my options through the university, because if that doesn't work out, then we may be looking at maybe a legal challenge. And I've been speaking to, Cafe, as well as the Justice Center, and they've been sort of giving me some options about what I could do. So yeah, so a legal challenge might be a possibility, but right now we want to exhaust all options before we go that route. And if we do go that route, we might be hosting like a fundraiser, or like GoFundMe type thing, where people can donate to the legal challenge. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. We're just going to continue as a group. I already have someone who is interested in becoming the next president, who'd like to apply next year. Yeah.
And I just want to say, before you continue, that I know I will pledge to do, if you do take the legal route, I know I will try to help you insofar as Cafe doesn't want to distance themselves from us. But we would definitely help you in whatever way we can to signal boost and figure out, and even help you with whatever non-binding legal advice we can.
I second that. I would also recommend getting in contact with Sage Gerard from zenmen.org, who went through something very similar to what you're experiencing at his university, Kennesaw University in Georgia. He's recently graduated just this year, so he's no longer going through that. But his experience, he might be able to sort of give you some ideas of things that he went through, things that he learned from them, and everything, even though it's a different system because it's in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
He might have some gems of knowledge for you that might be helpful. And that organization is still around. I mean, their website, zenmen.org, if you go to zenmen.org, you should be able to see what they're doing now and possibly get in touch with them that way. But you can also get in touch with them through us.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I would appreciate, getting in contact with that person. And talking to them. It would just be interesting to hear what they have to say.
He
Probably have a lot of notes to compare.
he experienced I think I don't mean to like compare things, but I think what he experienced was very similar to what you experienced, but it went on longer and ended up being I think a lot more severe.
Yeah.
In terms of being ostracized for being quote unquote dangerous, with no specification of how he was dangerous.
Some of it reached ludicrous levels, just absolutely ludicrous levels.
He is a ginger. He has no soul. No, they were just crazy with it, and it is, to be honest, it's a form of bullying. So if this is I know guys maybe are a little bit leery of therapy or talking to someone about that, but if you do, you might find that helpful to hear someone talk to someone who realizes that what they did to you was actually very abusive and very harmful.
Yeah, it really was. It was abusive. It took a toll on me mentally, for sure. I had never been exposed to those types of accusations. I'm like 140 pounds. I would never hurt a fly, and to hear that I'm dangerous or that I'm misogynist, like I love women. I love everything about them, and just hearing that stuff about myself just for being part of a group that wants to talk about male suicide and male homelessness, um, it took a toll, and I'm not gonna lie about that. And I'm sure that many people have gone through the same thing.
It hurts, dude, and I feel you. The same thing has happened to me. So, anyways, I was just going to ask, like, where people can find you online, but before we do that, I just wanted to ask, did anybody else have any other questions?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, man. So, Kevin, thanks so much just for sharing your story with us. We were very moved by it, and we hope to sort of help in any way that we can post this broadcast. If I see you on campus, I'll make sure to give you a shout. But for now, I was just going to ask, where can people find you online? Do you have like Twitter or any other forms of social media?
Personally, I'm kind of in the shadows a bit, but you can find our Facebook group uh, on Facebook called the Ryerson Men's Issues Awareness Society. As well, we have a Twitter that you can find through our Facebook as well. So, yeah, just like us on Facebook and keep up to date with what we're doing.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, dude. Brian, you want to take over?
Yes. So, Kevin, you're welcome to stay if you wish, or if you need to take off now, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. What?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, I got to take off. I got to do a couple things, but I really want to thank you all for having me on the show, and I'm a big fan, and I really appreciate you helping me get this story out there, because I think a lot of people need to know what's happening on campuses, and that it's really an injustice that's happening right now, and people need to wake up and need to start demanding change, I guess.
Yeah. No, yeah, and I mean, like, again, you were pointing out that there's just a lot of people that just, when you say men have problems, people are just like, get out. And so we need to, first we need to let them know, look, there's a problem right here. And they have to, see it and acknowledge that it exists. And that's the first step, So I think that it's as important for us to share your story as it is for other people to see it, and perhaps if enough people do, we can act on it, try to move towards some change. And then Allison was nervously and frantically pushing buttons, like she wants to say something. You want us to?
You can actually hear that?
Yes, I could hear your gamma levels rising, and they're doing it to me too. So.
No, that's sort of a creepy synergy.
Urge to speak rising.
It's actually funny because if you watch the last Lounging with me and Mike, we actually it's really creepy sometimes because we'll like move and say the same thing at the same time, and I'm like, whoa.
Oh no, we're becoming the board.
Yeah, we're becoming the Bajorg.
So yeah, do you yeah, let's do it, Max. It's fine. He can always.
Oh, okay. All right. So, anyways, dude, what's sort of happening at the end of the month is this meetup, sort of with people within the community. Although it's more focused on sort of what's been going on with the Gamergate controversy. It's called GG&TO. We've got some people showing up, like I said, within the community. I was just going to ask if you wanted to come. I can get you some contact information. I can send it to you through Twitter or through Facebook. What do you think?
Sure. I'd love to hear about
Check it
that.
out. Okay, I'll make sure I get that to you then.
Sure.
And somebody in the chat was just also mentioning that we should get him to just sort of check out Theron Meyer and what she's been doing as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I actually speak to Theron Meyer quite regularly.
Oh, okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah, good. All right, so yeah, it's good that we're all talking. That's awesome. So Kevin, yeah, if you need to just bow out, that's fine. Allison, again, I see you.
Okay.
I can't lurk with you on the job. Okay, so yesterday I asked people who. Okay, what I did is I asked those of you who are listening who aren't patrons to tell me what the reason, just why you aren't a patron currently, and what would convince you to become or motivate you to become a patron. And if you are a patron, just tell us what did motivate you to become a patron. And you can send those thoughts to topic@badgerpod.com. And I got a really great response. So, oh God, Scott just said nudes.
Well, you know, I want to tell you, if you become a patron, and you were like giving a certain amount of money, I can make some art. I'm not saying that it's nudes or that it's like a wife. Like if you could imagine Honey Badger Radio as a waifu, that I'm just saying that you may get some.
The Bajorg waifu.
Some nudes.
I'm not saying it, but I'm saying it. I'm willing to do a lot of things. I'm just putting it out there. Just putting it out there.
Okay, well, anyway, I got a really great response from people. And like I said, if you are listening and you aren't currently a patron, I don't mean if you don't have the money to do it, but if you had the money to do it and you aren't currently a patron, what would motivate you to do it, and why aren't you doing it now? And just ponder that, and please drop me a line at topic@badgerpod.com. And if you are a patron, why did you become a patron? So topic@badgerpod.com. Anyway, I got a great response. Like that probably had the biggest response of any call out for any particular topic, aside from the one where that young gay man was feeling very socially ostracized and I think as having some mental health difficulties, maybe suicidal thoughts. That got a lot of response, and this got a lot of response. So I thought, you know what, maybe I should do it again, maybe next month. But anyway, here are some of the responses. Rippy Rappy Weekends writes, solutions to the problems we face. I mean, I know you all have your ideas, and they're great. You like to talk, etc. I don't come to your podcast for a list of solutions and action plans, but that's what I would pay for. Proper plans laid out to say, here's a problem, and here's how we're going to address it, and why we think this plan will fix the problem, and this is what we need your money for. Basically, if you framed it like some sort of voluntary tax system. A good one, though. I'd pay a badger tax. Well, thank you, Rippy Rappy Weekends, for writing in and telling us this. It actually got me thinking about what we potentially could do, and I'm thinking about, we had a very successful Valentine's cast that was basically devoted to just men who were perhaps lonely during Valentine's, or people who had written in with messages about relationships and questions about relationships. We brought Tom Golden on for that as an expert in men's mental health. And I was thinking that we could maybe expand that into, and this is preliminary, but we could maybe expand that into a more ongoing series and bring in other experts on men's mental health who have approached us with an interest in shows like that. So yeah, that actually got me thinking. And then we also had a message from Ilya G, who said succinctly, fix your production value, learn from some other regular shows like Drunken Peasants, fix constant echo and screen sharing issues, have actual webcams rolling with your faces over top of the material you're presenting. And we had a lively discussion about Ilya G's one too. I believe it was Karen who pointed out how do we learn to have the same income stream as drunken peasants? it's a little bit, because they actually have the ability to create studio spaces and the funds to do so. And I think that they top out at about 3 people per stream, whereas we rarely have less than 5. So that would mean that we would probably need at least 6 stations around North America.
Well, and to be fair, don't they do isn't their stuff produced on the back end? It's not live, is it?
I'm not sure the Drunken Peasants. I think the Drunken Peasants are live.
Is it live?
But,
oh, I thought
yeah.
they did it produced. Like, okay.
And the thing is that although I really do want to improve the sound quality seriously, I do not want to do it, and there are people who have volunteered to help me out. The only problem is that an increase in sound quality based on volunteer hours is something that can go away. And as much as I know you guys don't like, or are a little bit iffy about the sound quality as it is going through Google Plus, and so am I, if we actually up the sound quality and then the because volunteers burn out, or they get jobs, or they have a baby or something like that, if they have to leave, then the sound quality goes back. And as much as people might complain about it now, believe me, you have never seen complaints like, where did your sound quality go? So, to my mind, I don't want to take on an extra expense until, I know for sure I can maintain it. So that might have to wait till we have some sort of feasible solution that includes multiple, many, many multiples of hosts, and different types of bandwidth and all of that other jazz. So it's a hairy hairball of a problem. But yeah, thank you for your input, Ilya G. We have been trying to work on that. It is still quite difficult, and it probably will have to wait till we figure out till we have until we have more income, because this is probably a problem that's going to need at least someone with a significant radio sound technician experience who's willing to work. And like I said, I don't necessarily want to have a volunteer on that particular issue, because if anything happens in his life or her life, she leaves, we go down in quality and we piss everyone off. So yeah, it's going to have to wait a bit. Anyway, if you aren't currently a patron, if you're listening to this and you aren't currently a patron, send me a message at topic@badgerpod.com. I understand if you don't have the money, but if you do, just tell us why. What would motivate you to become one? So, I'll give it back to Brian now that I have wittered long enough. I mean, come on, don't you want me just running the mouth out like this? Isn't this wonderful?
No, yeah, we're good. We're good.
I feel like there's a disturbance in the
force, in the farce.
In the Badgerg force.
There is a disturbance in the farce.
Yes.
No, we can continue with the show. I also want to throw in there, so I want to make more sort of exclusive artwork for patrons that donate a certain amount. I made one. It's a Badger waifu, but I'm also, people are calling her HBR Chan or Badger Chan right now already. But I also want to offer that I might do some for other YouTubers you like. So if you want to see a Deer Chan or Sargon Chan or something, I could probably come up with something. Just basically a gender bent, slight of build, incredibly cute girl dressed as. Oh yeah, this. As a teal deer or as a panda or whatever.
Yeah, this month the patrons, I gave the patrons, the Honey Badger Radio patrons, who at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio, I gave them a choice between Gilbert Godfrey voice being thanked, all of their names being thanked in Gilbert Godfrey voice, and Brian drawing a special thank you drawing, which I had to specify that wasn't 200 special thank you drawings, just one special thank you drawing, and they chose Brian's special thank you drawing, and I'm glad they did, because it actually was pretty hot, if I do say so myself.
I am also proud of how hot she turned out. So, and if you want to see Badger Chan, you'll have to become a patron. But I think the next thing I'm working on, I'm actually currently working on it, so I'll give you a clue as to what it is. I want to make a mouse pad that essentially it's Anna Cherry, and the mouse pad is her ass. You've seen those, right? They have the gel. So yeah. So if you want the Anacherry mouse pad with the ass on it, that's my next design. And then I'll probably do a thing for like a different, maybe another Badger Chan art piece of her doing something else. So.
Oh wait,
Try
you
to
meant
make it-
have we seen the mouse pad, not her actual ass?
What are you talking about now? What was that?
You said have we seen them already? And I was like, wait, yeah, I've seen her
No,
ass
no,
before.
like
yeah.
the actual, like the mouse pads have been made like for other characters. You know?
Right.
It's
Okay.
usually,
We all
like,
know for
yeah, the cushion is like the boobs or the ass, but
I was trying to
you
make a
haven't
dumb
seen-
joke and it didn't work. I
oh
apologize.
no, I get you. But you haven't seen the Anna Cherry one, so
Yeah.
I'm currently working on that. But that will be yeah, you'll want that. You'll want to get on that.
Nice. Nice.
So, anyway,
Yes.
if you guys have any other suggestions that you'd like to see, let me know, and maybe I'll put it in the queue. And if I can like quit my regular daytime job, I will spend all of my time making lewds for Honey Badger Radio. I don't have a problem with that. So let's get on to
Lewds?
lewds.
Lewds.
L-E-W.
Okay, all right, yeah. Yeah, okay, so like, yeah, next patron goal. You get us to like
Yeah.
1,200, and all Brian will do is sit in a room that's slightly darkened and draw lewds
Yes, I will just make lewds.
all day.
I'll
and
do it until I
publish
get.
them.
I'll do it till it gives me colon cancer from sitting.
And publish them on the Honey Badger Patron.
Yeah. All right. Let's go on to the first story. I think this is the one dealing with the main story. So we're gonna look at the fucking UN and what's been going on with the UN. So Max, would you like to do the honors?
Absolutely, and before I do that, I just wanted to suggest two possibilities for your artwork. One, I want to see a Rule 34 Badger. Two, I want to see a Vernaculus and Max Derrett OTP Yowie. Anyways, that out of the way. So, guys...
Wait! You can't introduce the topic like that and then just skate away from it. That's not fair,
Well, I could
man.
do I'll do like I can probably do a Yowie thing, but like not like I'll have to give me some time to think about that.
Okay.
That's sort of unexplored territory for me. I may have to like slow build on that one. Like maybe look at like Craig and Tweaking Craig stuff for some inspiration. But yeah.
I'll help you out, Brian. Anyways.
Oh my god.
The United Nations, everybody. The Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination, nice, against women, CEDAW, will be reviewing the women's rights records of 8 countries very soon. Those countries include Japan, Haiti, Mongolia, and interestingly enough, Sweden. The odd thing about this, though, is not the inclusion of Sweden and their choice to recognize what is actually going on there for once, but a stipulation in regards to how they are investigating Japan. Apparently, the CEDAW is recommending the banning of video games and cartoons that specifically promote sexual violence against women. Now, if mainstream gaming culture in Japan has promoted sexual violence, this would be a legitimate use of time and resources. Unfortunately, it seems that the ones recommending this quote-unquote ban see the game Rape Play as a universal representation of Japanese mainstream gaming culture. So seeing as their focus is on banning promotion of sexual violence against women, does that mean we can get our anime babes playing beach volleyball now? Yeah, I didn't think so. Anyways, guys, did you happen to read this article, and what are your thoughts on it?
So I was looking at I did look at the article on TechRaptor, and then I decided to do some digging into the UN itself, and specifically this group. And it's funny because when you look at the people who are at the top of the UN, like the countries that run it, they are some of the most, they're the countries that may have some of the worst sort of like reputations when it comes to their treatment of women. Yeah, egregious is a good way to put it. And I find it really ironic that they're sort of targeting Japan, because I was also looking at Japan's crime statistics, and they basically beat everybody, like most other countries, in about every fucking thing. they are ranked. Let's see here in crime levels, they're 18th, and in drugs, they're like incredibly low. And when it comes to rape, I want to say, yeah, they're ranked 52nd place when it comes to rape. They basically just have like the best crime rate, or some of the best crime rates in globally. And I don't know that it's because of the stuff they make, but the fact is that the majority of, I think that there's something to be said about the degree to which Japan has a lot of their sexuality stuff, their hentai, their ecchi, their X-rated video games, are all front and center, and everyone knows they're out there, and they're not ashamed of it. They have stuff aimed at teenagers that has nudity in it, that has sexual innuendo, that has sexual situations. I remember a show I used to love watching in the 90s called Ranma One Half, and the girls in there became topless about as frequent as possible, and that was aimed at teenage kids. And yet, they still have, they have like very low crime statistics. So this is like that, going back to that whole, well, does this media, does the consumption of this media actually create the violence or like the criminality in people from just being exposed to it? And I would argue no. In fact, I don't know for sure because I haven't seen the numbers, but I wouldn't be surprised if them having their media front and center in that way, and them not having the same kind of puritanical roots that the West has, it may have actually made it to where that sort of stuff is less likely to happen because people have an outlet. Because they have like all kinds of stuff over there. I mean, they got incest porn, they got the what is it called, where the girls look underage but they're not, lolicon or whatever. They got all that stuff over there. They got video games about rape, and yet they have like incredibly low actual rape cases. They likely don't have issues with incest, and I think that it would seem to me anyway that what's happening here is the UN is not actually thinking that there's a problem with Japan. They just want to censor them. They just think that having the fact that this media exists coming from this country is something that needs to be stopped because it's giving people in the West that are being censored, where you have games that are being changed or not being released here at all, or all these restrictions placed on people who want to access this media. They realize that it's not working because a lot of people just go online or they just order it through places like JList.com or these import sites like the one that decided that they would sell the the international version of Dead or Alive Extreme 3, and that basically gave people a workaround in terms of trying to get the game here. They're seeing that these attempts to block the market are not working, and they are trying to prevent them from being able to distribute at all. And even if it doesn't work, it makes the UN look good because I think that they're very interested in, someone in the chat just said this, virtue signaling, which I agree with. They want to be seen trying to block the stuff because think of the women in the same way that some other group might say think of the children, and they would even say that as well. Think of the minorities, think of whatever the oppressed group is. We're going to try to we're going to try to tell them that they're wrong, and it's obvious that they are, and this is like not a point of contention. But if they don't acquiesce to our demands, then we'll at least be able to point and say, look at how wrong these people are because they didn't listen to us. All right, Max, you wanted to say something?
No, Scott.
Oh, Scott
Yeah,
is first.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just real quickly, it's just like, I may be wrong here, but to me, at least what I'm seeing and what I remember, just, anecdotally, is just that I don't remember the UN ever being a big voice recently in recent years until maybe the last couple of years where we're seeing like Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn going before the UN and doing all these things, and like you had alluded to it before, it's kind of like a virtue signaling thing. What I'm thinking is like, is the UN just this kind of toothless kind of virtue signaling You know, they're
I
you know
think
they're doing the kind of thing where they're like, you know, it'd be a real shame if we had to say something bad about this country, kind of thing. You know, kind
yeah,
of
they're
thing.
generally on. I don't think that they have a whole lot of power per
Yeah.
se, but they do. I mean, they do have, like, when people say the United Nations, I think that there is an authority that comes with knowing that it's there, and people say, "Oh shit, that was at the United Nations. That must be a big deal." But I'm not really sure about their ability to actually get shit done. I also want to point out that one of the biggest people involved with the UN, one of the biggest names in there, is Saudi Arabia.
Right.
And I find that to be really ironic.
That was the point I was going to get to. It's just that it's like we have an institution within the UN that has Saudi Arabia as on the head of their Human Rights Council. How in the fuck is that possible? It's like, if that doesn't like set off a big flashing red light to people that the UN is full of shit, I really don't know what is. What will?
But Saudi Arabia is not the problem, dude. It's Japan.
Oh, well,
it's Japan.
It's video games. It's not that
video games.
The
Japanese
has prisoners working for them, building all those gigantic buildings all the time because they take their passports or anything like that. It's not them. It's fucking Japanese video games about skirts. You know. I just No, go ahead.
It really just kind of blows my mind. This whole thing just kind of blows my mind because what we're seeing is Frederick Wortham's discredited ideas rehashed over and over and over again, and to see them getting promoted at this level is kind of sick and sad. And what really blows my mind about this is stuff that was discredited 60 years ago. I don't know if everybody knows the history of this. Frederick Wortham wrote a book, Seduction of the Innocent, 1950s, and he set off this huge furor claiming that juvenile delinquency was caused by comic books and by mass media, like any kind of stories, any kind of novels that were maybe shocking, anything that was not considered his idea of wholesome. This is a psychiatrist writing this stuff, so people took it really seriously. And there were Senate hearings. He actually was heard before. Let's see, what was it? Was it the Senate Committee on Juvenile Delinquency or something like that? The Senate Subcommittee on Juvenile Delinquency. And one of the things that actually came out of this was that the Senate didn't impose it, but the industry created the Comics Code Authority to censor their own content in response to the big hullabaloo that they faced because of this guy's claims. Even though this guy's claims were highly criticized, among other things, he had basically based everything he said on the fallacy that correlation indicates causation. But he also, there were quite a number of falsehoods in his data, where he claimed other people's stories were his stories, things that other people said that he had originated those stories. He claimed that parts of stories that kids told him were the whole story. He presented them as like the entirety of the kid's experience or the kid's opinions and thoughts, and he rephrased things that they said so that it better fit his thesis, and he left things out to prevent things from not fitting his thesis. He took a non-representative sample. He only spoke to kids who were already disturbed. So he didn't seek out comic book users and look at what percentage of them had issues. He looked at kids that had issues and went with what percentage of them read comic books. Well, a lot of kids read comic books. You could probably say the same percentage of most groups of kids, if you looked at different demographics of kids, read comic books at that time. So he basically went through and falsified his data using a combination of different methods, and it was called out. And there was a great deal of criticism of the Seduction of the Innocent, but it didn't stop it from impacting the comic industry. And then it's gone through with the comic industry, the music industry, the creative writing industry. and now video games, and it's been the same thing with television and movies. So we're seeing this set of ideas that is completely discredited over and over again. It's like somebody said in chat, and I missed it because it went by fast. I missed who it was. It's the same song played over and over again. It's just that they're playing it to different audiences, and each time they do this, the audience they're playing it to doesn't seem to realize that it was played before to a different audience over a different topic and discredited. So they're taking it seriously, and they're not even questioning this stuff.
I just wanted to throw in there one other thing too. Like we were talking about how we started hearing about the UN sort of coming into the forefront when people like Anita and Zoe Quinn went to the UN to speak. And I just want to point out that this is sort of like par for the course. Like I know we've talked about them going to the UN before, but this is the way that typically I find that feminists work. When they can't get something done because the merits of what they're arguing for are just generally not popular or not good enough on their own, they will try to exercise force. They will try to use some kind of authority to make things happen the way they want them to, because they can't just make a good enough argument on their own. So instead, they try to make an emotional appeal in front of an authority. Usually, that's the state. Usually, that is the government, because the government has the power to, well, all it is force. That's what it does, right? Now, Anita and Zoe would not be able to go to the United States government and make the same kind of appeals because, frankly, there just isn't enough there to stand on. Plus, they'd also have to compete with people within those groups that would disagree with them, because it's sort of like a two-party system. The UN, however, is a single sort of I think it's basically the main headquarters of social justice in many ways. And they can go there and get a giant platform in a really big room with lots of representatives from all over the world that have chosen to become participants in the UN, in what Scott calls a Hall of Doom, or as I called it, like the swamp base that I brought up many times before. And they get to basically say, this is why we need you guys to do something. And even if the UN can't actually do shit on its own, because it doesn't really have any, force on its own, but it is a voice, it is a place where people from different nations get together and talk about shit, then they just go there and they make their appeals because, see, people like Zoe and Anita, and not limited to them, but generally people who want to use sophistry to get their way, and they can't get it through democracy or through the practice of making their case to regular folks to see if those people can sympathize and do something, because there's too much dissent in the public sphere. They will just go around it and go straight to essentially tattling on their parents, which is what this is. It's basically trying to use some force, some authority to get something done. And then when they've done that, I think that them appearing before the UN is no accident when shortly afterwards Anita was able to get an audience with one of the guys who runs the security on Twitter, and probably went to him and said, look, I've been to the UN, here's my video, look at how credible I am, could you please do something on Twitter? This is the same thing, it's going straight to an authority to try to essentially get something changed by force when they can't do it on the merit of the argument itself. And I just wanted to throw that out there. It's something to think about. This is the way they operate. They go straight to the top. It's like tattling on their parents, or telling on you to your mom and dad, or the cops, or the teacher, or whatever. And the goal is to get the results. They don't care about how ethical it is. They don't care about the morality of it. They don't consider themselves wrong. They just want to see it happen, and this is the way they operate. So that's all I wanted to say about that. If anyone wants to rebut or clarify anything, go ahead. It's just my initial thoughts, though.
Yeah, I just want to pull out some stuff from the chat. The UN is now the papal state. Very good point. And also, the cat girl, how do you say, Nico?
Neko-chan, or Nekos, yeah, the Nekos.
Neko lols? Where are they? Where are they?
I can make those quick. I can do. You know what I'll do? Here's what I'll do. I will start a drawing of a Neko, a robot Neko lolly or whatever, and the next time I do an art stream, which will probably be the Saturday after this, is when I'll do it. And I'll start one, so you guys can see that I'm fucking legit. Like, I can draw those motherfuckers, so.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, where do they fit in the internet currency hierarchy?
Oh, where do Neko lollies fit in the hierarchy of currency? Oh, I don't know. I think they're pretty valuable. They're not quite up there with rare peppies, but they're
No
like,
lolly. They want no
lolly.
Neko lolly. Okay, so draw them with huge tits and beefy thighs.
All right, I can do that too. MILFs.
So they want milkmaids, basically.
Yeah, they want
They want the milkmaids. Yeah.
Yeah, but they seem to be very particular, this chat.
Why can't we have both?
Yeah.
All right, we got to get away from that. So.
Okay, well, we also had mention in chat from Yukito, who said, thought I could offer some input. The last time the UN did this review, they said the same thing. The government replied that we already had, let's see how I can pronounce this, Nichiren for hentai games, and Cero is in capital letters CERO, so it's probably an acronym for games. So it didn't go well for them because our government already said we're self-regulating. He's talking about the Japanese government.
Oh, so it's basically like the ESRB version.
So yeah, it would basically be like somebody coming to the UN saying, you know, the United States needs a rating system for television and movies and video games and music that comes out of the United States because it's so different from what is being played in other countries, and you know, countries like Saudi Arabia just can't handle things coming out of the United States, and then the United States would come back and say, well, we already have a rating system. You're just going to have to come up with your own rating system that where our stuff gets a rating in your country, you know, which would be appropriate for their country. They can rate things as they come into the country. That's not that hard.
Yeah, the beauty of this whole situation is basically the United Nations, even though it's sort of a sad state of affairs, they're basically just making themselves look like idiots. What is happening here is exactly like Yukito said. All the UN can do is just recommend to people what they should do. They just morally platform, they point fingers and try to say what you're doing is bad, but whoever is representing Japan in this particular case is basically just saying that there are no fucks given and we already have a rating system, so you can go hug a tree or something, I don't know. And the weird thing about this whole thing, I just wanted to make sure that we point this out before we move on, is that in that original TechRaptor article, they sort of cite the fact that when it comes to the UN, it's sort of rich that they're trying to morally platform when it comes to these issues, because from what I understand, the UN's capacity to be an objectively moral source on these issues seems to be dwindling by the day, while with rape charges being made against UN peacekeepers in Africa. Like I believe it was Human Rights Watch, they released a report on the 4th of this month alleging the UN peacekeepers had raped at least 8 girls and women last year. And there are other things like with the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights saying that French and European troops stationed in the Congo abused children. So it's basically just sort of pointing them out. Like the only person that's losing in this particular circumstance, aside from just our sanity, is the UN. So all we should really just have to do with this situation is just sit back and laugh, even though, like I said, it is sort of sad to watch while we are laughing. That's all.
Yeah, it is pretty sad. They're pointing the finger at imagery and you know, rating systems and media that people have the nations have a choice whether or not they want to let in, and they have a choice whether or not they want to label it, and then people have a choice whether or not they want to buy it once it's let into the country. They don't actually have to buy it, but here they are as an organization employing and supporting groups that include people who are actually committing violent crimes against other people. It's kind of interesting to weigh one against the other. Oh, don't look at these things. Don't look at these things. But here we're doing these things.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was such a long pause, and then
I know. I thought there was.
Meh.
Max, did you want to say any closing things, or were you done?
No, just fuck the UN.
Yeah.
Fuck the UN.
Put them right in their fuckhole.
Well, why
But
not? It sounds like they're fucking everyone else.
Hey.
What we should do is we should have We should have like we should do a UN, where Rule 34 with the UN, and like free speech. And then the UN, we could get like a little Pope regalia, the UN, and then...
Yeah, we could like get the list of everyone on the council and have them all orgying together.
Ooh, how about Rule 34 Pope? How about that?
Oh my fucking...
Gotta be keeping something under that big ass hat.
the penis hat. That, although, you know what, we could do a Rule 34 of the Pope, and I bet there would be no Catholics calling for a fatwa on us.
Oh yeah, I like it. Let's do it. I'll make a custom Pope figure Rule 34.
Good point. Make it. You can use like a dildo maybe for the hat. So let's go on to the next story. Well, basically the last story. It's been a pretty sort of like light week. So, but we still got through a lot. So Max.
Feminists have been reticent.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's just been quiet in the whole like let's see how many things we can appropriate, destroy, infest that men generally like.
Or that women who aren't feminists.
This week. In before Street Fighter is sexist. That'll be next week's show. It just came out, so we'll see. They already censored it, motherfuckers. All right, Max.
All right, guys. So this just in: Street Fighter is sexist. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, so ladies and gentlemen, I just have one question to ask you, and I really want you to consider this before you respond in the chat or the people on this panel. Did Gamergate fail? Well, so here's the thing. An ex-GGer, I don't know what his name is, he seems to be anonymous, wrote an article on a website called Age of Shitlords, citing 3 reasons why he believed it did fail. Even though he claims himself to be an ex-GGer, he still maintains, like all GGers do, that the movement isn't a harassment campaign or an attempt to drive women out of gaming, but rather about ethics in video games, journalism, blah, 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 you know the drill. The article is not so much an attack on GG, but rather a lament that it could have been so much bigger than it was. And this is perplexing because he chooses to use the word fail, even though a lot of objectives were accomplished. And he did admit this closer to the end of the article. Did we have the ideal victory that we envisioned from the beginning? No, I don't think so, and I don't think a lot of the most proponent voices in GG would agree. But did it fail? I don't think so. But anyways, that's what we're here to discuss. So I got to take off now, guys, and thanks so much for having me. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Max.
All right, have a good night, guys.
All right, you too. Go ahead, Scott. I know that you're chomping at the bit to tell us how horrible we failed.
I'm not
and how
chomping.
is even bigger than it was a couple of years ago.
I'm not chomping, but I want to clarify something. Gamergate was never a win-loss condition. It was about affecting and creating change within games media and within, as it went along, media in general. So to say that it failed is, I think that's somewhat disingenuous and it's subjective, because obviously a lot of positive things have come from what happened with Gamergate. We are still seeing positive things happen, although it's the efficacy of Gamergate has been on the wane for months now at this point, but we're still seeing the positive effects. So I don't think it failed. I think that's a very it's not a proper way to describe it. I don't think at all, really. I think it's an ongoing. It's a battle. It's a war. It is a long-term engagement, and I think people that say things like it failed kind of fail to realize that it was not just going to be a one-and-done kind of thing. It wasn't going to be about win or lose. It was going to be a protracted, long-term series of events that are going to continue, whether under the Gamergate banner or something else. These fights are going to continue. They're still happening. They're still being fought. So we haven't failed. It hasn't failed at all. It's been quite successful, actually, I think, and will continue to be.
Just to quickly butt in, when the guy says failed at what? Like that, I think that's the most important question. Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
there are people within Gamergate itself that want different things,
right?
And some of them would say that they've succeeded, and some would say that they have not. So I guess it really depends on your definition of what it is that Gamergate was supposed to do and whether or not it failed at that thing. And that's not me moving the goalposts. I'm genuinely wondering, like, because I know that everybody wanted different things out of it. So
well, a perfect example that you can point to very early on was Internet Aristocrat. He, well, to use a colloquial, he rage quit basically because he didn't feel like enough was happening because he saw it as a we got to pounce now, we got to win. He's like Newt Rockney giving the speech to the Gipper, or whatever the fuck it was. Old people reference. Sorry about that. But he had that kind of that idea that this was a win-loss condition thing, and that it wasn't a war, that it wasn't going to be it wasn't going to be a long-term battle. And so, in his eyes, and in a lot of other people's eyes, they saw it as a failure. They saw it as a loss because they didn't get what they wanted, like you said. But that's the thing, though. A lot of people want a lot of different things within this, within this movement, within this hashtag, within this whatever you want to call it. So win conditions for some people are not going to be the same for others. But when you look at the baseline of what kind of started the whole thing, it is we have made some substantive positive change. So I don't think it's a failure at all. So yeah.
Yeah, I got some thoughts too, but I'm gonna let Hannah. I was just gonna say I want to say something, but I want to give it to Hannah first.
This guy's article sort of sounds like something out of my, Monty Python. All right, but apart from the sanitation, the medicine, the education, wine, public order, irrigation, roads, the freshwater system, public health, what have the Romans ever done for us? And to be honest, this sounds also, it reminds me very much of the people that come into forums for men's rights activists, like Men's Rights Reddit or places like that, and say, well, men's rights activists never do anything but complain on the internet. And because they haven't paid attention to what the group is doing, or because they aren't necessarily involved, or because the thing that they would like to see happen hasn't happened, or they've set some specific goal that's just in their mind that maybe isn't the goal of the group, and things like that, and so they decide that the group does nothing. And when you point out things that the group has done, like we actually have an article by Dean Esme on our website pointing out some of the things that men's rights activists have done that are substantial things. And you do the same thing with Gamergate. You point out the things that Gamergate has actually accomplished. They'll immediately become dismissive. Well, apart from that, I mean, that's one thing, and well, that's a list of individual things that aren't really a group accomplishment. Those are individual groups of people that did that. Well, yeah, there were individual groups of people that were part of a movement. The movement did set out, the consumer revolt did set out to achieve some specific things. They set out to affect change. They set out to impact their environment, and they've done that. And right to the point of affecting a government agency's decision-making process. So it's very hard to say that that's a failure. I mean, and by that standard, every movement is a failure. If changing the way a government agency approaches something that it administrates is a failure, then feminists have failed, the political parties have failed, every lobbying group in the United States has failed, attorney organizations that promote legislative change that don't necessarily lobby but advise and inform legislative change have failed. We're talking pretty much you can't succeed in activism in the United States by those standards, and that's a load of crap.
Well, I recently there was a message on one of our videos, and it was by some guy whose fiance kept asking, well, what have they achieved exactly? And I thought about that, and I thought really long and hard about that. And then it occurred to me, I stood up for anti-censorship and for men's rights, men's issues, and I risked my entire art career, which may actually have been burnt to a crisp, at least in the mainstream. And I did that. I stood up for these issues regardless of the personal cost. And it occurred to me that if everyone did that, this would be over tomorrow. So if I'm doing the one thing that if not even everyone, a critical mass of people did, this would be over tomorrow, then I think I'm doing what needs to be done. And I'm trying to convince other people to do it as well, and trying to put in place a community and the social supports and a place to talk about it and a place to feel heard so that they can do this thing. And I feel that's it's good. And if everybody sort of, did it too, or supported the people who are doing it, it would be done. And I don't see how else the change is going to happen. So I don't see what else are we supposed to be doing? Really?
You know what? It's funny that you should mention that, because I was just talking to someone about that the other day, and I was saying, you not only did you do all those things, but you did not have to do any of those things. Like, you could have just gone to the Calgary Expo, and on your own, we didn't have to go up there. You didn't have to put any Gamergate, product in the booth. You didn't have to do anything dealing with Honey Badger Radio or men's rights, anything. You could have just sold your comic only, and you'd have probably sold some copies, made some money, and been there for the whole 4 days.
Well, the other thing is that the first book that I made was seen by, I believe, Van Arts, like some people from Van Arts, and they offered me a job based on the strength of my first book, and I feel like the second book is far superior in terms of the art and the storytelling. And it's like, that's not going to happen now.
Yeah, I mean, but the point is that you risk things that you didn't have to risk, and in a way, we didn't know like how things would have turned out. I think there was some suspicion, but the point is that the risk was taken and you didn't have to do it. And I think that the only reason why we even see it as a risk is because not a lot of people do it. Because if it was something that, and that's the funny thing is that, if this was like a different political monolith that we were like basically standing in the face of and offending, there would be a great deal more support. Like if we're going back to the Frederick Wortham thing that Hannah was talking about. If there were people that were saying that tried to get us kicked out of the Calgary Expo because they were like comics caused delinquents in youth, people would have laughed them out of the fucking building, But because it's about this sort of like, it wasn't even directly anti-feminist. It was pro Gamergate, which of course, if you know what that is, then that's not anti-woman, and it was talking about, it was promoting Honey Badger Radio, which likely most people, except for maybe the Mary Sue, which are the people who are more or less responsible for putting us in this position, didn't even know what it was. So, I don't know. I think it's really important to drive home the point that, you didn't even have to do this thing, but you chose to do this thing. So.
Well, I didn't choosing specifically the fallout that happened, but I did, there was a sense that there was something that was risk. And
yeah, there was a sense of that. But my point is that you could have easily just said, guys, I think that, this is something I want to keep separate, and I don't want to put my my career at risk or the things that I am interested in for this thing. But you didn't do that.
No, I didn't, because I'd made a decision a long time ago that it was whatever success I got, I wanted it to be in the context of supporting these issues. And I don't want to shy away from when people point out a group of people who I listen to and I hear them and they have really good points and they're trying to be, and the media is marginalizing them. I don't run away from that. My impulse is to stand with them and to be as much of a shield as I can be.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy. Like, I second guess myself. It takes time to get to that point, and it's scary, and it's not fun. It wasn't fun that day before the expo, because I could just feel it in the air. It's fucking dread. That just like a fist in your gut. That day before we got evicted, because you could just feel it. You could feel that it was hostile territory, And you didn't know what they were going to do, but it just sort of, it's like it came on you slowly. And yeah, it's not fun to do this. But at the same time, I feel like it's something that needs to be done. And I don't want to have success in a situation where that isn't, that these issues, these very legitimate issues that I think that not only can help men, but can also help women and can so much improve the way we relate and the way we deal with each other in society. I'm going to stand for them, and regardless of the personal cost.
Yeah.
And it's like if everybody did that. And what's interesting is I've also, I think today, become a Honey Badger patron. So I'm pledging $5 an episode for $30 for 6 episodes. And when I did that, when I became a patron, I realized it was another thing that I was doing that if, well, not necessarily everybody, but a critical mass of people did, if they supported the people who are willing to put it on the line, who are willing to step up and say, I will do this regardless of the personal cost, if they were willing to support those people, more people would do it. And it's like I realized that as I signed my name on the dotted line for that $30 a month, I realized this is another thing that if a critical mass of people did, this would be over tomorrow. But anyway.
Part of the problem is, if I can interject quickly, is that I think we've seen over the last year and a half, almost, going on 2 years at this point, we've seen the vitriol in the way that the social justice authoritarians react to this kind of stuff, and they go after people's livelihoods, they go after their jobs, they go after anything they can to shut people down that they don't like. So, to what Allison was saying, this is a pretty big deal, because these people will go after you in the nastiest and dirtiest of ways to try and shut you up just because they don't agree with what you're saying. And so that kind of makes it a little bit harder for people to take that kind of stand. But what you did, though, is, it's incredibly admirable, obviously, Allison, and it's something that not a lot of people have done or had the courage to do. So, applause there for sure.
Yeah,
because
and
the way these people react, and that they go after people literally, just like their livelihoods, and try and shut them down to get their voices stomped out. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the sentiment, or I don't know if I should call it a sentiment. I don't know if that's insulting. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
When I listen to that, I'm like, well, people will say that. Well, what do you do?
Yeah.
But what about you? Like, if you're saying that, well, do you stand up?
Oh, of course.
I'm not you. I mean, generally.
Oh, sorry.
For the people who are saying that.
The royal you.
Right.
The
Yes.
royal, not the royal.
Gotcha.
I don't think there is a royal you. But if you're saying that, if you're questioning that, do you stand up regardless of the personal cost? And if you're somebody who isn't standing up regardless of the personal cost, are you supporting those people who are? What else? Like that, those are the two things that will change this, period. Because it won't be brick and mortar solutions. It won't be even crisis lines that do it. Because when people put up a crisis line, when people open up a brick and mortar solution for men's issues, they are under fire constantly. So they have two jobs. They have to run a business helping men, and they have to run interference on this constant drumbeat of of people destroying them. So they won't get anywhere. It's like expecting a soldier to charge a hill at the same time as he covers himself, as he puts covering fire down for himself. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. So the first thing you have to do is create cover fire. And the only way to do that is with people who will stand up regardless of the personal cost and take the hits. And you cannot have people who will stand up regardless of the cost without the people who will support them. So those are the two things that anyone listening can do to actually change this and have this be gone tomorrow if a critical mass of people did it and chose to do it. So, no, I don't think Gamergate failed. It just went slow. It's going slower than people were expecting. You're never going to, first of all, you're never going to break the media's back. I think the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to build a better one or some sort of oversight ability. And that will take time. Or you'll wean people off the media. And that will take time.
Yeah. If it feels uncomfortable, like if you're like doubting yourself about whether or not you should say something or speak out, I think that is there may be something there that is telling you that this is needed because not enough people are doing it. Once when around like last year around Christmas time, there was all this talk around these red Starbucks cups, right? And they were supposedly like I heard from people on social media that Christians were all up in arms because the red Starbucks cup didn't say Christmas on it. And the funny thing is that I only saw one video by one person that complained about that. That was a Christian, but the majority, like 99% of everything I saw, were people outraged at the Christians who were supposedly outraged at the cup. And I thought, well, this is an interesting opportunity, in my opinion, to make another point. So what I did was I took a photo of a Starbucks cup and I manipulated it, and I drew Muhammad in place of the mermaid, and then I posted that on my Facebook page, and I said I want to see if people would get like as defensive or as upset about the Christmas one that where they go after fucking Christians for, who I don't see any of them saying anything, but people are happy to criticize them. And let's see if they would do the same if this was the cup that people are so up in arms about. And the thing is, I was trying to make a point about how people are selective about their outrage. They basically pointed at things that are so incredibly trivial and that will actually have no effect in the real world. Well, at the same time, earlier that year, people were killed over drawing a religious figure from a book, essentially, right? And I was trying to make a point about that, but the thing that's more important than that is there were people who were telling me in comments, they were sending me messages, or they were talking to me in person, they were like, dude, what if something happens to you? Why are you drawing Muhammad? Like, that's scary. I don't have the balls to do that. And I was like, the fact that you have a problem, like you're afraid for me, is the reason why I drew that picture. And I think that was actually really important. So, and I this is a bit of a, but my point is that like if it feels uncomfortable, like if you can't stand up in a room full of people who are basically all trying to shit on men, and you say, you know what, I want to try and bring some light, shed some light on this argument. I have a unique perspective that maybe you had not considered. Can I field that question? The penalty for doing that is completely disproportionate to what is being said, and I think that needs to be challenged. And in any circle that you do that in, that's why I use the Muhammad example. But it doesn't matter where it is, like we're way past this. This is why, things like Gamergate were absolutely necessary. And I want to go back to real quick, because I put my name in the chat about the Gamergate thing, and did Gamergate fail? And I think that I want to touch on that a little bit too, real quick. Whether or not Gamergate failed or is failing, or whatever you want to call it, really depends on what you think Gamergate's goals were. And I think that people are relatively divided on what that is. But you cannot ignore the fact that Gamergate has done a lot. It has donated to several charities. It has raised money for people of all stripes from all over. It has created new websites that people like to frequent. It has made it not only acceptable, but expected for people to criticize mainstream media that is basically reviewing games, like places like IGN, Destructoid, Kotaku, places that we used to think were essentially the end-all be-all of games authority. It has made it to where those places are now considered, essentially, they have to up their game if they want to be considered credible, and people are going elsewhere now. There are real changes. Now, I think where the divide happens is where you get into whether or not Gamergate should focus on going at those social justice warriors in general and attacking the ideologies and being critical of feminism and all that, or whether or not they should just stay focused on ethics and games journalism, and whether or not that other thing is a side project. I don't personally. I think that those things are intertwined, but I will not go and tell someone that they have to feel the same way that I do. I think that SJWs will, for the most part, always exist, but I think that what we need to do is we need to make their arguments as basically as credible as they actually are by creating, with logic and reason and evidence, good counter arguments to not necessarily to shut them down, but to expose the bullshit that they spew.
Well, the other thing is,
go ahead.
I'm just going to get in here. You can illustrate the stupidity and the illogic and the irrationality of their arguments, but as long as they are able to exact these social penalties, you have to be willing to stand up and face them. So, Scott, go.
Scott. Well, getting back quickly to the Gamergate thing really quick before we wrap up, I guess, is that, we didn't fail, but I think right now, I think people who are still like actively following the Gamergate tag or looking for these changes and new things happening and stuff, they need to understand that this whole situation has, for lack of a better way to put it, has kind of evolved, and the discussion is changing now to where people are actually taking action and doing things and actually putting their money where their mouths are. So just if you're ever feeling like you don't see enough change, just know that there's things going on behind the scenes, that there are people working towards positive ends and that are carrying, for lack of a cheesier way to put it, they're carrying on the good fight. So things are still happening. They might not be public. They might not be as flashy as, knocking down gawkers, ad revenues, or helping a woman create a video game, or, any of the other myriad of things that happened during the whole year and a half prior to today. But there's a lot of stuff that's actually still going on. So, keep your eyes open, and there's a lot of positive stuff on the horizon. So there's that.
Yeah. One other thing, too, about the difference between essentially just cleaning up the ethics and going after the SJWs and the feminists themselves. I think that one of the big challenges that Gamergate has with that, in my personal opinion, is that there are feminists that are in Gamergate, and sometimes they feel like they're under attack for their views. And of course, we should be able to disagree with them depending on what it is they believe in, because there are, as we know, like 36 flavors of feminists out there, just as there are people who may feel like, well, look, I don't like the cronyism, but I still believe in like these sort of like these values over here, which like generally are shared by the people that you're fighting against. But I think that maybe within the Gamergate hashtag, that if you want to bring real legitimacy to fighting against social justice warriors, games journalism, it might be a bit too small of the area to do it in. I think that them going after media in general is like how I look at it. When they go after they go into film, they go into comics, they go into all of the creative areas. They go into music. That's why I bring the Metalgate people on. They go into they go into video games, sure, but they're also creeping into, we're seeing them show up at the UN. They're on YouTube. They're trying to control Twitter. They are trying to go straight to authorities that can block out dissent of any kind. And I think that is where the front could focus, is on media in general. That would be the direction I would take it. And in addition, it would also lend a great deal of legitimacy to fighting against social justice warriors. Like, imagine going to your friends who may not be real big gamers and may not go to these websites and say, look, these people are fucking up gaming, I need you to help me. Well, they may not take you seriously because they pretend that to them they may say, well, it's not a big deal, even if it is. But if you say, look, they're in education, they're in the news, they're in the UN, they're in movies, they're in TV, they're in comics, they're in all these areas, and their shit is based on faulty statistics and bad ideologies led by shysters and liars, and I need you to help me because nobody can see it. And there are people that may not even agree with it, but are going along with it anyway. Like, think of politicians that may not be feminists, but will benefit from these kinds of movements because, as I said before, feminism depends on the expansion of the state in order to enforce what it wants, and government wants that too. So you got to look at that too. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I think that Gamergate succeeded mostly in what it has to do, and it's still like an ongoing thing, and I don't think it'll ever end. I think Allison said that once many months ago, but we need to see that it's bigger than that too. So.
Yeah. Well, I think people say, well, what are you doing? Well, we're creating a community and a platform. What the fuck else is there to do at this point in time? Like,
Yes.
If
We're creating our own media, just like Niche Gamer and GoodGamers.us and Tech Raptor and fucking these other people on YouTube, Gate and Satan and I don't know, Neat Life, like all. Yeah, I mean, like all the like Alpha Omega Sin, Razor Fist, shout outs to those guys, like everybody who's making content. The internet is the way to go. It's basically where the new media is going to rise, and we need to be right there. Because we don't need these people with these useless journalism degrees that don't really want to do games, that are just doing it because they feel like they have to in order to move into something real, and they're going to just shit all over us. We don't need that.
I'm gonna build my own media.
With hookers and blow.
No, with
And
badgers
blackjack.
and hookers.
With Badger Chan and lollies and robots and neckos.
All right, are we ready? We
Take
haven't
us out.
fixed that echo. Jeez, what's up with that? It's like people are like, you're an echo chamber.
What? Am I in an echo chamber?
I don't know. I think you are.
Do you not
But
have
anyway.
a headset on, Brian?
Okay, so.
What was that?
I said, do you not have a headset on?
No.
Oh.
What's going on without the headset, Brian?
Yeah, man. See, we have the same mic, and I know you can plug the mic in your headset into the mic, so you got to get on that, buddy.
Okay, we'll stop headset shaming him.
Yeah.
All right, so www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Yep, go there. Make the change happen. All right, so here's some people who messaged me who actually are patrons, and when I did a call out, and I said, well, why did you become a patron? They said, because you forced us. No, they said, here's Chris M. I've been slowly making my way through the men's rights manosphere. I came across Girl Says What. I think you mean Girl Writes What. Even before Reddit.com are men's rights. I think that I decided to become a patron after watching the first 7 minutes of Rant Zerker 17. Who educates the educators? There's nothing I've read, watched, or listened that so far on the internet so clearly expresses my feelings of being a disposable male and society's contempt for me. It was then, probably that day, that I signed up to be a patron of Karen and Honey Badger Radio. I'd say that a necessity for patronage for me is 1, being understood, and 2, funding a group that can have some kind of impact. So that's Chris M's message. Hello, Allison. I wanted to respond to your inquiry regarding why I decided to become a Honey Badger Radio patron. I found the Badgers through Karen's Kitchen series, like so many other YouTube wastelanders, and I started listening to Honey Badger Radio about around the time you had Tommy Sotomayor on as a guest on the Thursday show. Excellent show, by the way. I was working through some of the older stuff, and I watched the new episodes as they came out, and somewhere along the way, I decided the work they're doing is worth it to me, and I want them to keep doing it. So I signed up on Patreon and haven't looked back. I think back to some of the heartfelt letters that you've read on air from guys who were just about ready to cash in their chips. They didn't know where to go or who to talk to, but there were the Badgers. These men found a sense of community through your broadcast, at least in part because they learned that their problems weren't unheard of. And better yet, someone was out there trying to raise awareness. Personally, I've had it pretty easy, privileged, some might say, so the impact the shows have had on me was less dramatic. But I still feel better knowing the Badgers, along with the Doge, the Angry Panda, Tom Golden, and a few other regulars, are out there fighting for what's right. Even if I don't need to be pulled back from the brink, I know you're pulling someone back, and that's why I donate. Because I need you. If my donations help you continue that work, then so much the better. Your patron, Dave B. Well, thank you, Dave, and thank you, Chris. We're good.
All right, so we're going to leave. Like any second now.
Probably.
Seriously.
Right now?
I'm going to push the button.
Like right now.
I'm just
What,
waiting.
but I thought you
Yeah.
already pushed the
Like right now.